fam. Welcome to the One More Thing podcast. Today I'm joined with Dr. Troy Doucet.
What's going on?
How you doing, man?
Feeling good. Life is good.
The Practical Prescription series is some of my favorites. I think as a church, yes, one of our responsibilities is to teach people about God and theology to the best of our knowledge. But I also think we have a responsibility as leaders to equip the community to become better humans.
Oh, yeah.
In general. And one of my favorite things about Practical Prescription is that it's mainly focused on that. It's
right.
Not a lot of doctrine. It's not a lot of deep theological conversation. It's literally about these are the practical ways that you can improve your life.
Yep.
And I think doing it every year is actually really good because it's a good reminder for people. Some of these points we've made before, but refreshing, you need those constant reminders of practical ways that you can live your life better.
That's right.
Because when you live your life better, then you're a better human and you can more effectively show God's love to people and be a force within your community.
That's
so
right.
I think it's really great.
Yep.
So this was week 2, and we'll actually start off with your prescription.
Yep.
So it's pull the tooth. Take responsibility for your life. Be brave and let go of what is bad, but also what isn't best. Change takes courage.
Yep.
So why this specific prescription? What inspired you to want to give this specific one out?
Yeah, so pull the tooth was, as Larry and I began to talk about the 9 prescriptions, pull the tooth was one, and sort of extracting things from our life that cause us undue pain, trauma, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And part of our conversation was the idea that it's not only bad things that harm us from becoming our full potential, but also accepting things that weren't the best. So these things weren't necessarily toxic or bad or evil, but we kind of settled for less than maybe what would have been best for us. And so that was the approach to the prescription. Is it's easy to look at the bad things that have happened to us, or the bad people, or the bad beliefs we hold. And Paul, in the scripture I used, gave a pretty exhaustive list of some examples. But where it becomes sort of blurry for us is what are some things in our life that we've accepted that weren't signaling evil, bad, not good, but we just accepted because the signal was just, it's okay. And I think that was the purpose of the sermon, was to say sometimes the enemy of becoming great is settling for what is just good.
Right.
And that's a tough pill because, everybody, you can be it sounds very judgmental. I have a good life, man. Why are you judging? It's not a judgment, but we're saying our life has limitless potential if we can just become cognitively aware of our own potential. And that's really a challenge. And I think we only change through being challenged. The only way I get in shape, to make muscles grow, is to put them through atrophy, right? To work them out, to literally break them down. And that's a challenge, but it leads to effective change. And so that was the idea. And sometimes pulling the tooth it hurts to pull the tooth. But the idea is if I leave that sort of toxicity in my body, it's going to infect and affect every other thing that happens. And so
I'm definitely this is a subject I can talk about all day.
Yep.
There's definitely sacrifices we make in the moment that don't feel good that are better for us in the long run. And obviously a natural one for you and I is any sort of fitness. Because it's something that's just a part of our lives. And does it hurt? Yes. Does it suck to wake up early in the morning and go to the gym? Absolutely.
Yes.
But overall and in the long run, this is a better way to live.
Yep.
Keeping yourself healthy and in shape is a good thing.
That's right.
Even though it sucks in the moment.
We say the one workout you regret is the one you didn't do.
Yeah.
And that's true, man.
Yeah.
That's a well put analogy, bro. I don't like working out, but I know that and that's what we'll talk about this coming Sunday. Not to get away, but the decisions I make now affect the future me.
Right.
And so I know I have kids who have way too much energy as teenagers, and I want to keep up with them. I want to be able to do things with them. I want to be able to ride the roller coasters. I want to be able to run on the beach and throw them in the water. And I can't do that if I'm not in pretty good shape, you know, to keep up, and I don't want to be lethargic. And so, yeah, that's a well put analogy, but I transitioned that even into the idea of the young child who has a tooth that's loose, who's very afraid to pull it out in fear of the pain it's going to cause.
Right.
But knowing that we got to remove that so the better tooth can come in, the more mature tooth that's going to be essential for your future growth or whatever.
Right.
And so that was another way to kind of spearhead that whole prescription, was to think about removing things that harm us, but also removing things that hinder us. Mm-hmm. And those things are often not mutually exclusive, but they're kind of blurry to see. You know, we know what harms us and what hurts us.
Yeah.
But it's not always clear what is hindering us from becoming our best self.
And I appreciated that you did that, because you didn't only just touch on like the physical things, you know, just like a tooth or working out, or even just relationships.
Yep.
You also talked about like your mindset, you know, like toxic thoughts that are in our brain that can really hinder us. And I think it's natural for humans to fear the unknown, fear the uncertainty. So it's like, yeah, I'm in a bad, like, I even hate to use the word bad. I'm in a neutral relationship, but I at least know what to expect within that relationship. So you're sacrificing great for good, you know?
Yeah.
So if I get out of this relationship, I don't know what's on the horizon. I don't know what the next relationship will look like. So there's that fear of like, well, I know what I'm getting in this relationship.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to stay with this. Or I know what I'm getting when I do X, Y, and Z. I know like the pain that I'm feeling with this tooth right now, but I don't know what the pain's going to be when I pull that tooth out. So it's natural, I think. But I think it's really important to push ourselves. There's a saying like you find, you know, like you see who people are. And I think you touched on this in your sermon, but like you see people are during their suffering. You really get to know their character, because there's not very much hiding when people are suffering.
That's right.
Because they don't have that ability to put up that mask when they're in the foxhole. And that's a saying I say, like, you know, you find, like, if I see how somebody handles suffering or stress or some sort of crisis in their life and they don't handle it well, it's like, oh, that's not a dude I want in my foxhole.
Yeah.
Because when you know, the poop hits the fan,
that's right,
as the saying goes,
that's right,
you want to make sure that person can handle the stress. And the only way you could do that is by putting yourself into stressful situations voluntarily, and building up that tolerance.
That's absolutely right, man.
So one of the things that kind of reminded me when you were talking was something about like how we view ourselves and the toxic thoughts that are in our head. And you were touching a little bit on some of this like victim mentality a little bit.
Yep.
I told this story, I believe it was during the transition of Encore, but I think it fits. And excuse me if you've heard this story. I'll try to do the Cliff Notes. But I talked about that study that the social scientists did, to where they took a group of women. They put scarring on their face. They used like a bunch of makeup to make it look like legit scarring. They sent the women into another room to look at themselves in the mirror, see all the scarring. They came back. They told them they were just going to touch up the makeup on their face. But actually what they did was they removed the makeup and removed the scarring. And then they sent the women to a job interview. And then they came back and they reported, you know, discrimination. They felt like the interviewer was looking at their scars, X, Y, and Z, all these things that like really were wrapped around the scarring. And obviously
heightened insecurities.
Exactly. But there was no scarring on their face. And so it worked for that transition as well, but I think it works for this to where it's like, if you constantly see yourself as a victim of your past or whatever it may be, it's not a great way to live your life.
No.
Victim mentality, victimhood is a reality, and it doesn't negate the fact that something has happened to you. Obviously, you know, if you have something in your past that's horrific, you know, say you lost a parent, you know, or whatever it may be. Those things happen, and it's unfortunate, and I truly believe God doesn't cause those things to happen. But there is this chaos that happens in the world, and tragic things do happen. So we can either look at that as a crutch to lean on and say, the reason I'm not living up to my full potential is because of my past.
That's right.
And somebody I was listening to the other day just said, there's no such thing as your past. There's no such thing as a future. There's only the present. And that's the only thing that you can affect.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that you can change. And that's the only thing that's in your reality at the moment.
That's right.
You can choose to focus on the past and be like, I'm a victim of my past. Or you can choose to overcome that and say, you know what? I know I didn't get the best starting point, but I can change my future by the decisions I make currently.
That's right on.
And I think that's a really good way to view life, because if we stay in the past and we victimize ourselves and say, life is happening to me, all these bad things are happening to me, then bad things will continue to happen to you, man. And you will continue to stay in the same place that you are. But if you can look at yourself and view yourself as like, yes, I am loved by God.
Yep.
And things happen, chaos happens, but no matter what, I will overcome those obstacles and try and know, like, when you go through a trial, when you go through suffering, it sucks.
Yeah.
But there's a lesson to be learned.
Bro, that's it.
That's
why you and I, man, we share a love of stoicism,
right.
And that was the way you said it, man, the example in that social experiment. It's, what am I giving power to in my life?
Right.
Because the mind is like, this is the organ that sets us apart. Like, if there's anything that God gave us that distinguishes us from every other creature, being, or whatever, it's our ability to control things with our mind, to control the aspects we think about our life. And that's what I use Marcus Aurelius's quote is, if something external to me is causing me pain, or some person said something about me, and I mentioned one of the guys.
Mr. Tats.
He called me Mr. Tats. It's Dr. Tats, bro. Like, I don't let those things affect me, and it's a mindset. Like you said, it's a mindset that I'm going to revoke power from that thing. And the victimization card is our inability to revoke power from that horrible trauma situation. It could be anything. It could be a past broken relationship. It could be a medical issue. But dude, there are times like, man, you and I, we've had conversations about, I don't want to call it trauma, but like the pain I feel being so far away from my children.
Right.
Like, if I cannot see the future, like, and I said this in the sermon, if I could see the invisible, I can achieve the impossible. And sometimes the impossible is not walking on water. It's just being able to cope with the pain I'm feeling right now. And I have to do that, dude. There are times I'm in the gym and I'm pressing and I have tears just rolling down my face, and like my friends are passing by, you okay, bro? And I'm like, I refuse to give these thoughts power of what if I'm a freaking horrible dad for being here? Like, what if my children regret me for making this move? Like, even now, thinking those thoughts affect me, dude. And I go, F that. My children love me. They know and the revocation of negativity and victimization, we all have that power.
Yeah.
And you just have to rise above. You have to see the invisible in order to achieve the impossible. Mm-hmm. And that's what I do. I project and I go, my children love me. My daughters are going to be like honored that I get to walk them down the aisle when they get married. They're going to be so happy when they fly in a couple of weeks or whatever. Like, your thoughts, man, dictate a lot of your reality.
100%.
And if I can fight to maintain positivity, then I know my life is going to reflect that, dude. I know it. But it's like I said, sometimes it's too easy just to pull the tooth. Sometimes you got to do the hard work to fix what was wrong, fix what you've done wrong,
right? Or
fix what other people have wronged. And, I had a pastor in church, my old pastor, the man who took a chance on me back in 2003, gave me a job as my first full-time youth pastor job. Dude, he was in our auditorium, called me up. And we had grown the church to like 2,500. And he made some mistakes in his ministry. He had an affair on his wife, and we were all new at the job. He had a first-time full-time youth pastor. He had a first-time executive pastor, first-time associate pastor, first-time senior pastor. Mm-hmm. And we didn't know how to deal with this incident. And so we made some mistakes. But after that sermon, man, like, dude, Andy shot me a text, and he said, I've never asked you to forgive me. Mm-hmm. He goes, I know that there are parts of your life that didn't end up the way they probably could have. because of what I did. And I never thought about it like that, man. Like after he left, our church just disintegrated. He was a great leader. I moved to California to take another job, and Aslan was born out there. But dude, for him to, like, I'm sitting in bed and he sent me that, and dude, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, yeah, man, it took you 20 years. That's how long ago it was, that this 20 years, and he finally revoked the power that his mistake had over his life.
Right.
And he told me, he said, I see myself maybe getting back into ministry.
Yeah.
Where all this time I felt I was disqualified, unworthy. And I was like, no, bro.
Yeah.
But think about that, man.
Yeah. That's, I mean, I think there's so much value in the Stoics mentality.
Yeah.
You know, and I think one of the great, you know, ideas in philosophy is, well, I guess it's more young, but just as far as like the shadow man.
Yeah.
You know, like understanding that at any point you can make that mistake that you're judging someone else so harshly for.
Yeah.
You could, yeah, and Jung takes it to the extreme. He's like, at any point you could be the Nazi prison guard that presses the button
That's right.
to gas and kill all those Jews.
That's right on.
Like that is something that is in you. And so this idea and understanding and awareness that no matter what, you have that potential within you.
Yeah.
You know, and I think there's something to that mentality of understanding, like, I could have been that guy.
Yep.
And I could be that guy.
That's
I
right.
could make that mistake. And it allows you to view the world in a much more compassionate way.
Yeah, man.
But allowing those thoughts to kind of fester in your heart and in your mind, it's not good. It's not healthy.
You got to fight, man.
Exactly.
It is a fight.
It is. It is. But man, I appreciate what you do. This last sermon was amazing. And
Thanks, man.
Can you tease the next
next
subject?
Yeah, I'll give a little preview. It's called Play the Movie, and it's all about, like, if I'm not liking how my movie that is my life is playing out, then I need to change the scene. You know, every decision I make now is going to affect the future me. And so how do we become wise in the moment of the journey, man? It's gonna be good.
It's amazing, man. Well, thank you so much for being on One More Thing.
For sure.